Hey guys, Stealth here and welcome to Wargame. In today's video I have Nuclear Winter is Coming, which apparently is also quite suitable for tacticals. Now I haven't actually played one of these, nor am I sure that I've seen/covered one of these, but it's an interesting map. It gives you all sorts of different angles of approach, and usually you have, let's say, 2 to 3 players going to Hotel Foxtrot, and then you have the other, well, let's say 5 or 6 doing Charlie Delta, and that leaves you 1 or 2. Well, let's say there's always one who's going to play, what do you call that, artillery. And then there's usually 1, potentially 2 players who are not contributing directly to the battle, or at least not in ground units, but who will be operating their aircraft. In today's battle, however, it's going to develop slightly different, as we're going to be following Fertile Turtle, and he's going to be pushing with his M1A2 and a Piphawk 3 as, well, sort of support over here. This is a fairly open area, so you could argue yes, it works for tanks, and yes, it works very well against tanks, because while the tanks have free reign to engage whatever they can spot, and they have very few obstructions, the same thing goes exactly the other way around for the ATGMs. So that means that your tank could get shot at, but at least it's a very narrow corridor. So it's not that easy to get a flank shot on something as heavily armored as an M1A2, which, well, if you hit it from the side, that definitely hurts. If you hit it from the front, this thing can take a very, very sturdy beating. Now he's playing US General, so he does not have any sort of extremely upfetted M1A2. He does have it at fairly high veterancy though. He's just 1 level below Elite. So he's definitely going to have a lot of performance coming out of this tank. The M1A2, in case you are not too familiar with its exact stats, 24 AP on the gun, which I believe is the highest AP in the game. That gets balanced by having 22 frontal armor, as opposed to the 23 frontal armor that you would find on a tank like the Challenger. And rate of fire is 12 rounds a minute, whereas, for example, the French Leclerc has a rate of fire of 12 rounds a minute, but less armor. It is also the most expensive tank that the, let's say, the Blue 4 units can get at 180 points. Side armor of only 9 means that it is definitely susceptible to getting one shot from the flank, especially by aircraft. Those could be a very, very real hazard in this particular type of terrain. Fortunately, he's not going out alone. He has with him Glebvisok, I guess, and Ionut. And there is more. There's Evang over here. And Pierce over there. So, and Angus. So we got Fertile Turtle himself, that's 1. Then you got Ionut, that's 2. You got Glebby, that's 3. You got Evang, that's 4. Angus is 5. And Pierce is 6. So instead of having just 2 or 3 players, they sent 6 players all the way over here. Which means that the left of the map is, well, left. There is not a whole lot of units which are actually going to be covering this. So this is going to be sort of desperate blue for defense. And if Red 4 actually takes the lead, if actually goes on a full-on, let's say, push to contact, and they don't find any, then they are very quickly going to get into Gulf. So let's hope that this offensive group over here can do a lot of work. And they're currently in the process of doing just that. The M1A2 is pushing back against the T-72 M1 Mont from Askabout, kills it. Takes 1 little bit of damage from a sissy squad over there. Falls back, but the damage is done. And now it begs the question, how far can we push up with this line? Because there are so many units over here, but where do you go? This town is going to be their first stop, and then this tree line. The trees over here, also very handy, especially from a tactical vantage point. You can start side-shotting units which are coming down the road. But you need to get there first, and you will be encountering units which are, like this tank over here, not really too happy with any Blue 4 presence on this side of the map. And you could be encountering fire support vehicles, tanks, well, whatever they have on this tree line. So it's just going to be bunny hopping and potentially using smoke. Smoke, however, is something that Fertile Turtle did not bring on this one. He is just using the M1A2 and the Pip. He has brought in an additional unit, and that's coming in here. That's a V150 with Rangers. But aside from that, he has nothing. And he is being detected, which is concerning. So he's driving deeper into the forest and now trying to get a shot at the M84AN. And this is something that I really like. Ionut pushes in with the Commander's Pair and the Fallschirmjäger and the Commander's Pair again. It's risky to push into a town, but it is arguably equally risky to not push into the town. Because for all you know, this could be a town that's defended by a skeleton force, which it very much seems to be. There's Brendryen 90 in there, which are very deadly to the Abrams, and the Abrams does take a hit from them. And aside from that, there was an Eric squad. If that is all, then they might actually be able to push this town and start moving up. Far too often you see it that there's units all over here or on another part of a comparable map, and players just don't push up. They just sit there with all their expensive stuff, and then you watch the replay and you go, yeah, there were 2 infantry squads in here. Keep in mind, it is a tactical, so people don't have a lot of budget. They don't have a lot of funding that they can use to buy more troops. So pushing in here, and unfortunately losing quite a few of the units that they had pushing in, they, as far as I'm concerned, absolutely did the right thing, and were able to really inflict a lot of harm against the Brendryen and the Erics. Unfortunately, the M1A2 is going to be down for repairs for a bit. Sure enough, it still has some hit points left, but at this point I'd say it is indeed safer to bring it back for repairs than to just keep going. There's one of the Brendryen surviving, but one is all it takes. And just after the Rangers evac their vehicle, the V-150 gets destroyed. For some reason, Glebvi decides that that's enough. He quits and leaves the game. I'm not exactly sure why. I think it might have been his units that were over here trying to push into there, but they were also partially, at least, owned by Ionut. So I'm not exactly sure why he decided to call it quits so fast. Now, aggressive positioning over here from the Bradley. He was hiding in this tree line and providing fire support with the Bushmaster and potentially locking down targets with the TOW 2. Although, at the moment, no targets had materialized, at least not in the right range. Come on, Rangers, take these guys out. It's just one man standing. Askabout is not going to go without a fight. There you go, he's down. I think that was the Bradley that took the kill. So that seems that the town is now clear. Alright, blue, 1100 points, red, 875. We have still a sort of, well, half-assed defense over here. Makia is trying to defend here. At least he's bringing up some forces. We have Kolot with a bunch of SAS. There are there are 2 vehicles in here, but no HGMs, nothing whatsoever. So if Red 4, and this is what I mean, if they don't sit on their asses but they actually push, there is nothing that blue could do. They could take over this town pretty much in a heartbeat. And sure enough, a Bardelis has a couple of machine guns, but it is not nearly as heavily armored as an Achsarit. So it is really quite possible to just push these guys out of the way. Similarly, why are there no HGMs coming out of this town to lock down the position that the Bardelis is trying to occupy, which is close to that tree line? This is also Force Recon, with a vehicle that really does not have any optics, but then again, you're just trying to poke and see when the enemy starts biting back. And at the moment, they're just not. In case you're wondering what's going on in Delta, nothing. Blue has 1 command infantry, 1 transport, and that is it for the entirety of this group. This utter lack of units in this area is what I find really interesting about this replay. Because normally, the fight in Delta is one of the most intense fights that you see on this map. But not if it's a tactical, because then every troop counts. Every unit that you have on the map is going to be, well, not vital to your victory, but definitely makes for a bigger contribution to a potential victory than when you're fighting a 10v10 with no limitations to income, or no limitations to starting points, and everybody's just spamming Spetsnaz, Navy SEALs, Legion 90, all sorts of heavy anti-infantry lats or infantry on infantry warfare over here. For the moment, it's actually pretty quiet over on the left side of the map. Over on the right side, blue, while I was chatting about the left, has been making some progress. Panzergrenadieren are pushing up, unfortunately being pushed back a little bit. So it's time for their Marder transport to come in and assist. I still really love these things. 7 frontal armor, 1925 range. and 6 AP allows you to very quickly cut through vehicles and infantry alike. That 6 frontal armor could be, well, it could be about to be tested by the infantry over here. That is a little too much for the Panzer Grenadiers and their Mortar 2 transport to take on. So for the moment, just wait and let the others join the fight. The M1A2 has been repaired. It's back in the fight, right in the middle of it. And there is indeed an HEGM group over there. But thanks to this building group over here, it seems like they don't quite have line of sight yet. In the meanwhile, the Rifleman 90, the AMX-10 and the Humvee are trying to push and seeing how much resistance exactly they encounter. Which at the moment is, again, not much. I wouldn't be surprised if Red 4 is currently devoting more of their forces towards Foxtrot than they normally might. Because once Blue captures this area, it's going to be pretty damn risky getting for, or trying for Red 4 to keep them out of Echo, which is the only zone that allows for air spawns. Land spawns can also be brought in from Bravo. And of course, on top of that, it is the position where you have all the FOBs, if they still have any, and where all the artillery is housed. So it is definitely vital for them to try and defend that. And I'd say with this tree line over here, you have a pretty easy way of doing just that. Because from over here, you can lock down the whole field. And it's going to be pretty hard for Blue to get in there. Now, over towards the left, where we're still encountering some infantry. But so far, it's really not that much. Fortunately for the Gavati over here, they're only fighting a BMP 1P. Had that been a BMP 1D, they would have already been dead, because that would have been a grenade launcher. So this guy with the VDV-90, probably using the BMP 1 as a transport, made the wrong choice for his particular area of operations, because the infantry was just not really getting the support from the vehicle that it could. The Grom is not a bad weapon, I'm not a big fan of it, but it only does 2 HE every 7 seconds. Whereas a grenade launcher that chews through infantry quickly. Now Red is finally actually getting a couple of victories under their belt, but not a whole lot. And then, once the VDV clears out the Gavati, it's just a Barkhan and a Bardelas, and that's it. There is nothing else here. Sure enough, Occitan Warrior is trying to get a warrior in here. Not a warrior. Is trying to get a Panther in there with what I believe are going to be Commando Marines. So those guys should be able to at least put up a fight against the VDV. But again, it's the only squad of actual infantry on infantry that could hold this position. Over to the right, where the Rangers are pushing in and really encountering a ton of resistance in the form of a quad stack of VDV-90. Now, I guess this guy did not quite buy my mug yet, because I have a mug that says no quad stacking. He's just quad stacking his VDV. If you do this, it means that all of your infantry, sure enough, they do a lot more damage. Or, well, a lot of damage, but they're all going to take damage just the same. Whether it be damage from a source like artillery, or from an airstrike, or just from a standard weapon. It doesn't matter, because you're not just finding one, or you're not just having one squad panic or two, but all four at the same time. So, please don't quad stack. Also, the 4 BMD-3s in the field are perfect targets for the Cobra that has just arrived. Unfortunately, the Cobra did get met with a fairly high amount of aggression and immediately got killed off. Without any good information about what was going on here AA-wise, I think the Cobra was a little early. Had they waited a little bit more for potentially the Marines to start scouting and have the Rangers spot some further anti-air threats, then the Cobra might have been handier. But again, hindsight is always so much easier. Now there is a Sokol coming in, and the Sokol is immediately getting shot down by what I think was the Shanav. And that pushes Askabout, one of the Red 4 players, who was definitely operating on this flank, to leave. Now at this point, the VDV squad seem to be pushing, and the US Marines backed off into this building just in the nick of time. The VDV are pushing, the 163 is falling back, the LVTP-7 is falling back, and unfortunately it is the base LVTP-7. It is not armed with a grenade launcher. That could have made all the difference here. Because sure enough, at this range, it would have been very dangerous for them. but at greater range, that grenade launcher could be very effective in trying to keep the VDV at range. There goes the LVTP. The US Marines are going to be dying very soon after. There you go. And now we have nothing that's spotting them. So he's trying to push forward his 163, which is armed with a Vulcan. Fairly decent accuracy at 20%, and ground range at 1575 is more than enough to start bringing it to the VDV, if you can see them. And that last bit turns out to be the problem at the moment. Now over here on the left, we still have the Commando Marines. These are the ones that were dropped off by one of the Helos, one of the Panthers, and another Panther has dropped off another squad. They have already been a little bit in conflict. They've taken some losses, but they haven't actually fired their guns once. So overall, these guys seem to be fairly healthy, fairly good position. If they get more support from the 2nd Commando Marine Squad, they should be fine. Let's see how the fight's going over here in the woods. We got the VAB VDAA pushing against the... Oof. That was very deadly. I'm not sure if that was the intended target of the J-22B, because it seemed to be a little low value, but sure enough, it got it. And it's now dancing around big anti-air missiles. And actually, it's impressive. It's capable of dodging everything. This guy has 30% ECM. Do they have missiles left? Yeah, they got one left on the PIP 3. They might need that for the KA-50 though. Would these be the VDV? Or another group of VDV? Never quite know. Bradley's trying to spot something, but currently does not have a lot of luck. How aggressive are you going to be? Yeah, he's going for it. He's going for this little section of wood. He knows that Akula is there. He has spotted it. And considering that the player has ordered the unit to go from here to there, he knows that Akula is there. Akula against the Bradley, in most of the cases, is definitely in favor of the Akula. If it can see the Bradley. Currently, that's not true. So if a Red 4 Recon Squad gets eyes on the Bradley, it's GG for the Bradley. Until that time, the Bradley can keep the rest of the force informed about the position of the Akula until it becomes a problem. Now, Red seems to be doing another push over here on this town. And they have a command infantry or a command unit inside this sector. So they're definitely trying to reconquer it. Is that really a priority for Red 4 at the moment, though? I wonder. Because sure enough, they can neutralize it. And they might smell weakness on the sense of blue. Although Evang and Occitan Warrior have some units over here, which are not going to go down without a fight. Although Spatsnaz are capable of pushing out virtually any infantry unit. But finding the command infantry from Blue 4, it's not going to be easy for Red. On the other hand, they don't really have any other option to push. Delta currently is the easier option to push. And it seems like the CV has been withdrawn. There you go. Magic 12 offloads Mordov 8. Now to have a look at where the enemy exactly is. Because that CV... Oh, it's still here. It's still here somewhere. It could be inside these buildings. It could be in the tree line. Where is it? Zelda are trying to take down the vehicles and the infantry. There goes the BTRD. Ironside surrenders. That was the guy who was operating here, I believe. The VDV have finally caught up with the Bradley over there. And the M1A2 seems to be dancing around impacts from artillery. That is something that's going to cause this tank to maintain its distance for the time being and not be able to support the Panzer Grenadiers and the Milan should the enemy push on them. Score-wise, you might think that Blue is heavily winning, but they're actually not. Blue has 2,700 points versus Red's 2,900. So sure enough, it might look like Blue has most of the map conquered, and I would agree. But Red still has these 3 sectors and more points. And I've seen it happen that the team that seems to be winning, the team that has the most territory and the most units, goes, aha, we got you guys. And they keep pushing, and they keep pushing, and they keep losing, and they keep losing, and they keep losing more units, and suddenly they have lost the battle. Uncoordinated attacks, especially against a opponent that's really not benefiting from attacking, but really benefiting from defending, is really risky. See, like this, the Rovait, in this case, they really shouldn't stay here and fight. Because all they can do is lose. They cannot win. They're only going to lose, sure enough, 10 points, but if you do this enough times, you will lose the battle. The Delta Force are holding. They're being resupplied by a Hemet. And Magic 12, while he has done good work over here, he really has no reason to stay here. Same for Asatan Warrior. He's trying to go after some Iglas, but aside from that, they get very little support and very little tactical... well, advantage from just skirmishing around here, I'd say. Other than maybe keeping the enemy on their toes and potentially getting some kills on a couple of conquerors. Now, over in Foxtrot, it seems like Blue is actually losing the battle for this forest. They have gained some points, 2860 versus 2975. There is still the quad stack of the VDV roaming around. I'm not sure if it's the same group, but... that's what I'm suspecting. Unless somebody else also happens to be using a quad stack. Now, whose smoke is that? I think it could be smoke that's put up by... well, whoever inherited Ionut's units. Because I thought Ionut left. He only scored 25 points. If he has this many units around, he probably would have gained more. Now, with the smoke in position, the LVTP-7s are making a dash for it. US Marines are getting dropped off. AT-4s at the ready. And vehicle killed. Good. Now, what do we encounter in this town? If anything. Oh yes, the VDV are here. Some of them anyway. And that seemed like napalm, so they could be combat engineers. Yep, sappery. Oof, this is gonna get harsh. There's a BTRT there that has a grenade launcher. It's currently not training the grenade launcher on the US Marines. It's trying to take down the LVTPs. And so far, it's moderately successful in doing serious damage. But unfortunately, the US Marines were not really getting enough support. They just did not have the support that they need, because the transports were surviving for far too long for the US Marines to really stand a good chance of defending against it. And there was just an overwhelming amount of firepower over here. US Marines are forced to use only the M16 and the Mini-Me, not allowed to use the AT-4 at the moment. Now, this should be an easy fight. Here goes the 163. That is how you deal with a bunch of sappery. This thing does not have the best armor, if any. It has 1 point of armor on every side. And that is something that will cause flamethrowers and other napalm weapons to really hamper. They're not going to be that effective against anything that has armor. Now, I'm seeing another triple over here. Of relatively high veterancy, so there's probably a lot more VDV in here. This is when I should be seeing mortar fire come in. The mortars are standing by. Oh crap, the other quad stack's also here from Dr. Feelgood. Yep, we got a triple and a quadruple. That is a lot of VDV. The M1A2 does have some shots, but they're not great. Whoa! Did they just split off that squad, or did they all get killed off? Because I mostly refuse to believe the latter. M1A2 looking for a shot on the BTRD, I think. Or potentially going for a shot on the VDV, but from this angle it's going to be very hard, because there's too many buildings in the way. BMD-3 survives, but take down a vehicle. Shayatet seem to be a little busy with the VDV for the moment. So are the Panzer Grenadiers. This is the priority, guys. That autocannon on your left. Shayatet falling back. There you go. Shayatet took it out. Well done. Now you still have the VDV. Don't get that Abrams too close. You don't want to take an RPG-29 to the front. It's 24 AP, and this thing has 22 armor, so you will start to lose hit points. 163 looking to assist, not quite getting a line of sight. And it seems like they are actually falling back a little bit. But Sananim 95 might be able to hold this town for the time being. There comes the RPG. Seems like they did not get a hit in on the M1A2. Tananim, come on, get the building. Be quick. Okay, they're inside the building. They're fighting calmly against a couple of panicked VDV squads. They're forcing the VDV to move, which now makes them susceptible to more fire from supporting vehicles like the Marder and the AMX-10. The M1A2 is being pulled back, mostly out of fuel, I think. Fuel considerations would really be a problem here. These things, they have great specs overall, but they suffer in autonomy. And this means that the M1A2, I'd say of all the tanks, well, potentially tied with the Japanese, actually have the worst autonomy for the Blue 4 tanks, the higher tier Blue 4 tanks. How's it going over here? Another airstrike from an aardvark. Look at this. Colot has really done a lot of pushing with the SAS and the SBS. Don't push into SAS with a helicopter. This is going to be the result. Nice try. I think the more interesting fight's going on here. Sapari have still survived? I thought they got killed off. Good attack from the Cobra. A couple of rocket pods. Another unit that I also like to use over here are little birds. If you have a town like this, little birds. Grenade launchers. And they're very cheap. They're only 30 points, which in a tactical means that if you kill one, let's say medium to higher value infantry team, you're going to be getting your money back. And if you lose it for 30 points, well, big deal. It's only 30 points. It's not that bad. It's, for example, better than losing the Cobra at 60 points. And in this case, I don't know exactly how deadly the anti-air situation is over here, with the exception of the Akula. I would have a little bird here and another one there. Space them out a little bit, and I have two different angles of attack, so that I can cover more of this town. Rangers dealing with the transport from the Rozvedka. US Marines should now finally be able to get these VDV out of position. There goes one squad of VDV. A Panther. Whoa, that was a Panther that actually wiped out that infantry squad. Points, 4165 blue, 3585 red. We only have 5 minutes left in this game. Butter Branch, don't push into Butter Branch with an LPCP-7. Smoke these guys up first. Throw HG or throw HE shells their way and then start to push, but only with infantry. The Butter Branch will murder any vehicle at a range of 1,000, 1,050. Don't push into them. Don't play on their terms, play on yours. The amount of airstrikes that this aardvark has been allowed to do is, well, surprisingly high. But then again, I'm not exactly sure how many Red 4 players there are still left. I think Dr. Feelgood is still here. Askabout has left. The Ochosnice, I think, has also left. And as for the others, I don't really know. There's the Padabranchi, currently heavily engaged with the Commander Marines, and potentially the Rangers next. And now they don't really have that much firepower to distribute among both the infantry squads and all the fire support. In the form of the VAP 2013s, even a Leclerc. Hammer transports. And they're trying to desperately defend their command infantry, but it is not going to work. There goes the command infantry. Pierce gets the kill. What's his Pierce on? 695, well done. That's the leading in points for the team. There goes Private. He's down. Oh, T80 UK. Why are we not seeing this thing on the front line? Why are we not seeing a T80 UK on the front line? Because if you have a tank like this, well, sure enough, it wouldn't really hold its own against the M1A2 that well. But from over here, it could be flinging ATGMs. And when it does that, it's still going to be pretty risky for any vehicle that tries to push up. But parked over here, it's just going to be a very dead tank. Especially when an aircraft like that flies by and drops a very heavy payload right on top of it. There goes FRKS, that's another red. RC-24M, don't... Why? I just don't get this. You know that there's SAS here. You don't know exactly where the SAS are. So you don't know exactly where to throw down an airstrike. Although this one, fair's fair, is probably gonna hurt. Even though they did survive. But SAS, especially if it's more than one, they are a real threat to aircraft. And yet they flew in with an Su-24M. Against a group like that. That was really risky. Not worth the reward either, because had they actually killed the SAS, they would have scored 35 points. Congrats. Is that really worth risking a jet? That is far more valuable than just 35 points. Always try to make a risk-reward assessment. Is the risk that I'm about to take worth the potential reward? If no, then it's, well, really not worth the risk. Then you might try to find another opportunity to push. Or find another use for the asset that you have. Whether it's a tank, a plane, a helicopter, an infantry unit, I don't care. But try to always make that assessment. Doesn't mean I don't make stupid mistakes in my games, by the way. Sometimes I do stupid shit on purpose. Just to see if I can get away with it. And other times I just make really poor decisions. Because when you're playing Wargame, it's not always going to be... Well, how do I put this? You might not always have the state of mind or the mental distancing ability to go, okay, is this really risk-reward? Is this something I want to do? Because you're just sort of reacting to the enemy at times. And going, oh shit, my unit's taking fire. I need to get this unit back. I need to heal up these. I need to supply there. I need to... Blah. And you're more busy with the, let's say, the day-to-day tasks of managing units in Wargame than looking at the week-long strategy for the whole battle, if that makes sense. Let me know in the comments if that actually made sense, that whole rant. Anyway, I suppose we can wrap this up, because there is really not that much left to red for. Unfortunately, because I thought that this could have been an interesting defense from red 4 over here in this sector. But there were just too many players over here pushing. And they got a lot of kills between them. So that was Fertile Turtle for 895 points in kills and 450 losses. Definitely a tip of the hat to Piers. 1040 versus 325. Evang for scouting. And who was the other one who was operating there? Glebvisok was operating there but didn't really do too well. Magic was in the middle. Angus. Angus also provided quite a bit of infantry capability, I think. As for red, this is impressive. Dr. Feelgood, as the top player of the team, and I don't mean that in the perception of how much he scored, but where he was on the list. The higher you are on the list, the more likely you are to inherit units, because the first player always inherits the units from everybody who leaves. So this guy was managing forces probably all over the map from his teammates who had abandoned him. And despite all of those additional units, he was still only able to go negative by 5 points. So well done. Well done. As for kills, the M1A2 has been busy. T-72 M1 mod, Sissy, HEGM squad, another recon vehicle, Morskaya, a bunch of transports. And then finally, we encounter the command infantry and an artillery unit. Aside from that unit, there is not a whole lot special in this list. You can see that, well, on average, one unit gets 1 kill. Which, in the case of the units used, I'm not really surprised about. Anyway, that's all for today. Let me know what your thoughts are down below in the comments. If you want to support my channel, then I have a link down below in the description where you can support me on Patreon. I would really, really appreciate your support. More on that in that link, and I explain in a video how that works and what sort of support I'm looking for. If you have a good replay to send, do so by all means. There's a link in below. There's a link down below in the description, and you can send me a replay through that. The more interesting you make the description of your replay, the more likely it is to get featured. And keep in mind, I know that there are some people here on YouTube who watch whole videos of an hour, but not too many. On average, people watch about 12 to 15 minutes of video when it comes to Wargame. That's the average. So, an hour-long replay is something that I am very unlikely to cover. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but it's going to have to be something really quite special. So if you have an hour-long replay, you can send it in, but you have to make sure it's really something special. Okay guys, with that, I'm going to end it. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I shall catch you very soon for more videos.